Hey everybody, here we are in episode 3. We're going to start this episode a little backwards. We're going to start at the end and move to the beginning. So you'll see in here I have the 5Y3 tube, the 6V6 and the 12AX7. And you'll see that I have the filament wires coming up right there through the chassis, connected to the pilot light here. And here's the high power wire that goes to the board that's just sitting there right now. And I've got the 2 power leads coming out. I don't have a fuse connected yet. And I have it going to my Variac. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to power this thing up slowly and make sure all the filaments are working. So let's put some power. There we go. I'm going to slowly bring it up. We'll see if that pilot light comes up. There it comes. Let's go to 60 and see what happens for a second. See if we see anything. I see some glow on the rectifier tube right there. I don't see anything on the 6V6 yet, or the 12AX7. Let's go up to 80, right there. So it looks like the rectifier tube is glowing nicely, and here comes the 6V6. And there's the 12AX7. You can see that orange in there. Go up to 115. Why not? Go for it. You can see that that indicator light's working real nice. We've got some nice glow going on here. Let's take a look around the front. So there's our dial light, just like I envisioned it. That's going to look real nice with that dial glass behind it. And we should be able to pull this shot back a little bit. And if I turn this off, it should go off. There you go. Alright, so that's a success. We have our filaments connected, and we have our rectifier tube connected. So all we really need to do now is build the board. So I'm going to start doing that. If you remember, I told you that I'm going to actually work backwards on this amp because I've got the tubes mounted as close to the transformer as I possibly could. And here's what I've done. I've actually printed this layout, and I've actually reversed it so that I can work on something in the right direction. So let me go do that, and I'll be back. Okay, everybody, I want to walk you through the underside of this amp. I have done an initial power on, and I know it does work, but I still need to do some testing. I want to throw it up on the scope and see what the signal looks like. But let me do a little bit of a walkthrough here, show you what I've done, and maybe give you some pointers that will help you if you try to build one of these. So if you recall, I said that I put this board in backwards. So on a standard Fender Champ, this board would be mounted this way, but because of the tube configuration, I had to flip things around. So that wasn't so hard to do, right? Just do things in reverse. So just starting here, you'll see I've got my fuse holder, right? And I've got my power cord here, and I'm using a 3-prong cord. So here's the ground right here, and I've got one side of the power cord going to this power switch right here, and of course the other side goes to the fuse. Okay. Then I have the transformer power coming into the other side of the switch. So that's essentially what we have from a power perspective. My 5-volt line right here, this is for the filament for the rectifier tube. You'll see I have this twisted, and it comes right over here to the 5Y3. This is my high voltage side, and this is the side that you call 390 volts, I believe, is what they say it's rated as. Goes to the other side of the rectifier tube, and it's center tapped, and the center tap is going to ground. And then here's the 6.3 volt filament line, and again there's a center tap, and that goes to ground. I've got the 6.3 volt filament side coming here across, going out the underside of the chassis, and comes up here for this connector. I don't know if you can see this in the video, right there. Okay, and we'll talk more about that later. And then I've got another pair of wires that comes over here to the tubes, right here, and it goes to the 6V6 and the 12AX7. So all the filaments are wired, everything's working just fine. Let's start with the output transformer. So the output transformer is mounted on the other side of the chassis. I'll show you that in a moment when I flip this over. There's 2 wires that come out of the output transformer. There's a blue and there's a red. Now you got to be careful because on the schematic for this amp, let's see if I could show you that real quick, on the wiring diagram. Let's see where that is. And here it is. This one is reversed, but you'll get the idea. So this is where the wires come out of the output transformer, and you'll see it has red right here, like that. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. It's right here. So it's got red going up to the 16 microfarad cap and blue going to the 6v6. You can't go by what the colors are on here. They don't always work. I've had an amp before where I followed this and it was wrong. I was getting high-pitched squeal. So anyway, I have the red wire. In this case, it did work. And if you look at the spec for the transformer, for the output transformer, this red dot, I'm sorry, this dot right here, I believe indicates the power side. Could be completely wrong. I have no idea, but that's where I put it. So that's what I did, and it worked the first time. So anyway, the output transformer, I've got the red going here and the blue going to pin 3 on the 6v6. And then the green and black that come out for the speaker, a mistake that I made initially was I took, what they want you to do is take the green that comes out of the output transformer, go on to the tip of the speaker jack, and then it runs over to this 22K, which is a negative feedback transistor, right? And the black wire that comes out of the transformer, I connected to the ground of the speaker jack. That's wrong. Doesn't work that way. You have to take that ground and ground it to the chassis. What you're creating is a double ground there. So you have to take that black and mount it to a chassis ground. So there's really only one wire. Essentially there's two, because I've got one going to the negative feedback. But there's really only one wire going to the speaker. On the input side, very similar situation. So here's the 222, 68K resistors that go to the input jack, and those are the grid stoppers right here. All right, so one wire comes up here and goes to the tip, and then there's a 1 meg resistor that goes across to the ground, and then they want you to run a wire to the sleeve. And then essentially for the second jack, this one is bright, this one is not. There's a wire that goes from the tip to the sleeve, and then the other wire from the grid stopper goes to the tip. Kind of confusing to figure out how to do this wiring. I always have a struggle with that, so I'm going to write it down this time and make sure I remember. One other thing that I did here is I added a 25 microfarad, 25 volt bypass cap right here, and that goes to the cathode of the 12AX7, at least one side of the 12AX7. And that's something that's recommended just to smooth things out and filter things a little bit better. So I've added that in. But aside from that, it's the standard Fender circuit. You'll see here I have this little funky resistor thing here. Believe it or not, I ran out of 100K resistors, so I had to use 250s. So I'll have to replenish my stock on those. But aside from that, everything is pretty much standard. Everything is laid out correctly. I've tried my best not to have wires crossing, having filament wires crossing input signal wires. I've dressed it fairly well at this point. And what we're going to do is flip it over, show you what's on the other side, and then we're going to throw it up on the scope. So let me flip it over and show you what this looks like quickly. Alright, so here we are on the top side. Here's the transformer. Here's the output transformer. Here's the rectifier tube, the 6v6, the 12AX7. And then here's the wire that comes out that goes to the pilot light once this thing is in the cabinet. Let me get this thing set up to show you what it looks like when we throw it on the scope, and we'll be right back. Okay, just to walk you through what I'm doing here, I have the Heathkit audio generator connected. That's the model A08, I think. And I have the output voltage set to 8. I have my frequency set at 100. I have my my range set to the times 100 range. And I have my voltage range at 100 millivolts. Okay? I have a coax wire running out here, going to these clips, and then I have a jack that goes to the back of the amp, which is right here. Okay? So basically I have the positive connected to the positive lead and then a ground. I have an output from the amplifier, the speaker output right there. This orange wire goes to my dummy load resistor box. So it goes in there, right there, and then I have a wire that comes out here to the scope on channel 1. Because this is a 4 ohm amplifier, I've got my selector switch. I'll zoom in so I can show you that. My selector switch set to number 1 for 4 ohm, and I've got my slide switch set to 4 ohms there. And I've got my scope turned on, and we're going to watch and see what happens. So let me set this thing down and we'll focus on the scope. Okay, so we're going to turn the amp on, and you're going to see a bit of unstableness here when I first do that. So the power's on. I'm going to give those tubes a chance to warm up, and we'll see what we get. So you'll see right away we're getting a nice waveform, and I'm adjusting the volume right now, like that. Let's change the scale a little bit here. And you'll see right there is where it breaks up. See, that's where the signal, that's where the tone will break up, and that's where you get your peak optimal range on the amplifier. So that's where the signal will break up and you'll get some grittiness on your guitar. But prior to that, it's pretty good. So we could say that this amp is clean and it's working well. Got a nice stable waveform there. I'm going to take this this little plastic tool and just tap around the tubes. See if I have any noise in there that I have to worry about. Nothing. Holding steady. I'll tap around underneath a little bit on the components. Rock solid. That's great. So now I'm going to take the output voltage and I'm going to crank it up a little bit on this. I'm going to go up to 10 on the audio generator, like so. Okay? I've just turned the volume down on the amp. And I'm going to crank this thing up like so. And it really, really breaks up nice. One other thing I want to show you is on my dummy load box, my watt meter. So let me readjust the camera and show you that. Okay, I have the volume turned down on the amp. I'm going to bring it up. And you'll see as I bring the volume up, it's climbing up. And this thing is about 5 watts, which is right. It's a 5 watt amp, and that's about where we are with the volume completely cranked up. And obviously you'll see the signal on the scope is completely broken up at that pace. We'll bring it back down. Stable right about there. And from a watt perspective, we're less than a watt. So I would say that this amp is healthy and it's working pretty good. Alright, let's run some music through this so you can hear it. Be right back. Okay, so essentially I have my speaker wire coming out of the back of the amp, and I have it gator wired to the speaker that we're going to use in this amp, just like that. It's sitting there in the box. And I have an MP3 player connected to the input that goes into the amp. So let's turn it on. Let's see what we get. And that's about a quarter of the way up. That's it from a volume perspective. It's plenty loud. So it gets plenty loud. That's great. And then the last thing I want to show you on this, before we just do an explanation, is the temperature of the tubes. Right, I always check that around just to make sure things are good. So looking at the rectifier tube, I'm at about 155 degrees, 160. The 6V6 looks like it's up at about 190. The 12AX7, 85. The transformer, 85 degrees, that's nothing. And the output transformer, about 90 degrees. So we're good there. So let me turn this off. I want to do one last thing before we wrap it up. So the last thing I want to show you, I found this great drawing of the signal path for this amp, which is pretty interesting if you want to check it out. There's a guy by the name of Robert Robinette who has a great website about how to do Fender mods and stuff, but he's got some really cool stuff here. So you'll see that the input jack 1 is a high impedance, right? So you get much better, clearer tones. And you'll see the signal path will come across here, across the 2 grid stoppers, and go to the grid of one side of the 12AX7. Okay. It then comes across to the plate, goes through a .02 cap, comes to the volume pot, right, which is 1 meg, and it comes across to the grid of the other half of the 12AX7. It then goes across to this coupling cap, which is .02, and goes to the grid of the 6V6 GT. From there, the plate, it goes to the output transformer, and from the output transformer, it goes to the speaker. Very, very simple. That's basically the signal path for this entire amp. So if you have any problems with these amps and you're getting noise and anything like that, these are the places you look. It's very, very simple. I mean, there's minimal components here. There's a pair of 68K resistors. There's a pair of .02 coupling capacitors in there. And there's a volume pot, and essentially that. And then you've got your tubes and your output transformer. There's really not much to look at when you're trying to troubleshoot one of these amps. So it's very, very easy. Also, on this diagram, he's got the voltages down here, which is helpful. So if you're ever working on one of these or want to build one of these, take a look at Rob Robinette's website and look for this Fender Champ signal path. All right, I'm going to end this video here because the next step for me is going to be to mount the grill cloth, the speaker, and mount the chassis in the radio, and that will be the final episode for this one. But we're not going to do that yet. We're going to close this one out today because it's probably a little bit long. So that's where we are. We have a working amplifier. It's very healthy based on the tests that I've done. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, folks.